It is late February 2026, and if you look at the calendar, we are we are standing on the precipice of the spring buying season right now.
Usually. I mean, that is the operative word there. Usually.
Usually, right? It's the time when, the tarps come off the backyard pools and the for sale signs usually start multiplying in the front yards.
Right. The traditional spring thaw.
Exactly. But I've been staring at this massive stack of reports from the North Texas Real Estate Information Systems.
And Trice.
Yeah, and Trice. And I'm looking at the comparisons between January 2026 and January 2025. And I really have to be honest with you, I'm struggling to find the spring in these numbers.
It's definitely hiding.
It looks less like a market revving its engine and more like a market that's just sort of stalled at a green light.
It is a stalled market.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a really complicated stall. It's not that the engine is completely broken.
Right.
It's more that the driver, meaning the buyer, and the passenger, the seller, are basically sitting in the front seat arguing about where to go.
Or who's paying for gas.
Exactly. We are seeing this massive, just entrenched tug-of-war right now between buyer hesitation and seller stubbornness.
And the data we have for our deep dive today, focusing specifically on Denton County, it is just full of contradictions.
Riddled with them.
Which is why we are focusing just on Denton County today. We really want to understand this one specific area for you, the listener. We aren't trying to boil the ocean with the whole Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
No, that's too broad. The trends wash each other out if you look at the whole thing.
Right. We want to see what happens when you zoom in on that northern expansion. So we have the local market updates. We have the monthly MLS summaries.
Stacks of data.
Huge stacks. And we're going to cross-reference all of that quantitative stuff with some on-the-ground narrative from a local agency, Peet Realty.
Which is such a great inclusion.
I think so, too. We want to see if the reality on the ground actually matches the spreadsheet.
And that is crucial, really crucial, because data without context is honestly just dangerous.
It can completely mislead you.
Oh, entirely. You can look at a spreadsheet and think, well, the sky is falling. But if you actually drive through a place like Krugerville or Aubrey, you might see a totally different picture unfolding in real time.
Well, let's go ahead and test that sky is falling hypothesis right out of the gate.
Let's do it.
Because looking at the headline stats for our first section here, just the general Denton County snapshot, the volume numbers are, they are ugly.
They are heavy. There is just no sugarcoating it for anyone listening.
Closed sales. Just looking at closed sales, they are down 16.1% compared to last January.
Right.
That is not a rounding error. That is a massive, significant chunk of the market just vanishing into thin air.
No, it's huge. And to be totally clear for the listener here, we aren't talking about listing volume yet.
Right. Not the new houses hitting the market.
Yeah, exactly. We are talking about closed sales. These are the deals that actually crossed the finish line. Keys were handed over.
The actual transactions.
Yes. A 16% drop in transaction velocity is a massive deceleration for any local economy. It means the gears of the market are really grinding.
So is that purely a demand issue then? Are people just, not showing up to open houses?
Well,
because if demand just fell off a cliff, wouldn't we expect to see inventories skyrocketing? Everyone's house just sitting there empty?
that is the logical assumption. That's what textbook economics would tell you. But real estate logic in 2026 is currently somewhat broken.
How so?
Well, if it were just demand falling, you'd expect the market to be completely flooded with unsold homes.
Right. Supply goes up when demand goes down.
But look at the supply side of the Ansfreeze report. New listings are actually down 4.7%.
Okay, so we have a total standoff.
We have a severe lock-in effect that hasn't thawed yet. Sellers are sitting at the kitchen table looking at their 3 or 4% mortgage rates from a few years ago.
The golden handcuffs.
The golden handcuffs, exactly. And they are looking at current rates in early 2026. And they are saying to themselves, I am not moving unless I absolutely have to. Unless there's a divorce, a death, or a massive job relocation.
So you have slightly fewer homes hitting the market in the first place.
Right. So you have significantly fewer buyers who are able or frankly willing to pull the trigger on the homes that do list.
And when volume drops 16% like that, basic economics dictates that price eventually has to give. Something has to break.
The pressure has to go somewhere.
And looking at the median sales price for single-family residences in Denton County, it looks like it has given. It's down 5.1%.
It is a correction. Make no mistake.
So what is the actual dollar figure for that median right now?
We are sitting at a median of $428,550.
Yes. Now, play devil's advocate for me here, just to give the listener some perspective. If I bought my house in Denton County back in, say, 2019, I'm probably still up massively, right?
Oh, absolutely. If you bought in 2019, you are still sitting on a mountain of equity. You might have seen some paper losses from the absolute peak, but you are totally fine.
But what if I bought in 2024?
If you bought at the peak of the recent frenzy, you are likely underwater on paper right now.
Wow.
That 5% drop we just talked about, that's about $25,000 on a $500,000 asset.
Just gone.
Just vanishes from your net worth statement overnight.
Now, does that actually matter if you aren't planning on selling?
Practically, no. You still have a roof over your head, your payment hasn't changed. But psychologically, it matters a lot.
The wealth effect.
Exactly. It affects psychology heavily. It affects your willingness to take out a home equity line of credit to redo the kitchen. It affects how rich you feel when you go out to dinner.
Right. Yeah.
And when people feel less wealthy, they pull back, they spend less. The whole local economy feels that chill.
But is this specifically a Denton County problem, or is this just a broader North Texas problem? Because, we see headlines about the Dallas boom constantly.
This is where we get into what I call the tale of two counties.
Okay, let's hear it.
If you look south at Dallas County, the established urban core, their median price isn't down at all.
It's not.
No, it's actually up 1.0% year over year.
Up, even with high interest rates.
Just barely. But yes, it's holding firm.
Okay, what about Tarrant County, Fort Worth side?
Tarrant County is basically totally flat, down 0.3%. Statistically insignificant.
But then you look east of Denton to Collin County.
Right. Frisco, Plano, McKinney, their median is down 5.0%.
Almost identical to Denton County's 5.1% drop.
Exactly. It's a very clear pattern. The northern suburbs, the exact areas that just exploded in population and price growth during the pandemic, are the ones taking a hit now. The established urban core of Dallas is remaining stable.
That makes a lot of sense. The areas that appreciated the fastest, driven by that frantic need for space in 2021 and 2022, they have the most air to let out of the balloon.
It's basically physics. Dallas didn't spike as violently in the same way, mostly because it was already built out and expensive, so it's not correcting as violently now. Denton and Collin are going through that correction.
So if the overarching narrative here is that the northern suburbs are cooling off, does that mean the big exodus to the country is over? Are people just done with that farm and ranch dream?
You would certainly think so if you were only looking at the median price drop on a spreadsheet.
Right.
But this is where we have to look at the actual type of product being sold. And this is where that Peet Realty source material you mentioned becomes really, really interesting to dive into.
Yes, let's bring that in now. So this is a local brokerage based in Aubrey, Texas, zip code 76227.
Very specific market.
Very. And reading through their marketing and their market materials, it really doesn't feel like they are selling the same product as, say, a high-rise condo broker in uptown Dallas.
No, not at all. They are talking about properties with retired Tennessee walkers.
The horses?
Yes. And raising British white cattle.
Which I have to admit to you, and the listener, I actually had to look up. I did not realize a specific cattle breed was considered a real estate amenity.
Well, it's not an amenity in the way a swimming pool is. It's a signal.
A signal? What do you mean?
It signals a very specific lifestyle. When a brokerage leads their material with that, when they are talking about having direct access to the LBJ Grasslands Trail System and having the ability to, quote, spread out a little, they are targeting a very deep psychological need for buyers.
Spreading out a little. That phrase really stuck with me, too, when I read the report. It feels like the exact opposite of everything happening in the dense city centers.
It's the complete antithesis of the urban core. And despite the overall sales numbers dropping 16% in Denton County, that fundamental desire hasn't gone away at all.
You don't think so?
In fact, I'd argue the desire to get out of the density is probably as high as it has ever been. The barrier isn't desire. The barrier is affordability.
So people still want the Peet Realty lifestyle. They still want the acreage for the horse or the cattle.
Desperately. But the cost of entry has just become prohibitive with current rates. So the dream isn't dead.
It's just deferred.
It's deferred. And it's becoming much more selective. 5 years ago, you could just buy any patch of dirt and call it a ranch. Not anymore. But if you have a property that genuinely offers that true farm and ranch escape, there is still a highly motivated buyer out there for it.
It just takes a lot longer to find them.
Exactly.
Well, let's talk about where those buyers are actually looking right now, because if the general market is cooling down, you would expect everything to just be freezing over uniformly.
Right.
But looking at Section 3 of the reports, the hotness index, that isn't the case at all.
No, the heat isn't gone. The heat is just moving. It's migrating around the county.
Let's break this metric down before we throw too many numbers at the listener. The Entry ICE report lists a hotness ratio. How is that actually calculated?
It's a great metric. It's basically a measure of immediate real-time demand. You take the pending sales, so homes that are currently under contract but haven't closed yet, and you divide that number by the active listings.
Okay, so pending divided by active.
Right. Think of it like a restaurant reservation list.
Yeah.
The active listings are the empty tables sitting in the dining room. The pending sales are the tables where people have actually sat down and ordered their food.
That's a great analogy.
So if you have 100 tables in the restaurant and only 5 people are eating, the restaurant is pretty dead, right?
Very dead, low ratio.
Exactly. But if you have 100 tables and 50 of them have people eating, it's bustling. It's hot.
Okay, so let's look at the city-level data using that restaurant analogy. Let's start with the heavy hitters. Denton City itself.
Denton City has a hotness ratio of 26.9.
So contextualize that 26.9 for me. Is that a crazy Saturday night rush, or is that a slow Tuesday afternoon?
It's a solid Wednesday lunch crowd. It's decent. Business is definitely happening. Food is coming out of the kitchen. But it's not a frenzy. There's no line out the door.
Got it.
And we know for a fact it's not a frenzy because of another metric, the sold-to-list price ratio.
Right, which is sitting at 92.4% in Denton City.
Which is incredibly telling.
That actually seems really low. That means on a $400,000 house, the seller is effectively eating a $30,000 discount.
On average, yes.
Yeah.
It implies that buyers are walking into these transactions with a significant amount of leverage.
They aren't just taking what they can get anymore.
Far from it. They are doing the inspection. They're finding out the roof is 5 years older than they thought. They're complaining about the ugly carpet in the guest room. And they are demanding and getting real financial concessions. Sellers just aren't holding all the cards in Denton City right now.
But wait a second. I'm looking at the price data for Denton City specifically. We just established that the county overall is down 5%.
Correct.
But the city median price actually went up.
It did.
From $360,000 last January to $378,000 this January.
That is what the data says.
How do you explain that contradiction? Buyers are aggressively negotiating 7% discounts. They have all the leverage, yet the median price is somehow rising by $18,000. That sounds mathematically impossible.
It does sound crazy, but it's actually the classic mix shift trap. And honestly, this is where so many amateur real estate investors get completely burned.
Explain the mix shift.
You have to remember what a median actually is. It is just the middle number in a stack of sold homes.
Right. Half sold for more, half sold for less.
Exactly. So imagine if in January 2025, you sold a whole bunch of smaller entry-level homes for around $250,000. That heavy volume at the bottom drags the median number down.
Okay, that makes sense.
But then fast forward to January 2026. Those entry-level buyers, the folks trying to buy the $250K houses, they're totally priced out by the high interest rates. They can't get approved, so they drop out of the market entirely.
They are on the sidelines.
Right. So the only people still buying houses in Denton City are the wealthier move-up buyers picking up the $500,000 new builds.
Ah, so the bottom falls out of the volume and the top stays heavy.
Exactly. The median mathematically jumps up.
Even though individual home values didn't increase.
Right. It doesn't mean your specific $300,000 house magically increased in value to $378,000. It just means the average transaction that actually managed to close that month was for a much more expensive piece of real estate.
That is such a critical distinction for the listener to understand.
It really is. The underlying value of an individual property is likely flat or slightly down, which we saw in the countywide 5% drop. But the mix of what actually sold was just heavier on the top end in the city limits.
So definitely don't pop the champagne just because you saw a headline that the city median is up?
Definitely not. It's a statistical illusion. And you really see how tricky this data can be when you compare Denton City to somewhere like Flower Mound.
Let's talk about Flower Mound, the heavyweight of the county.
Flower Mound has a hotness ratio of 34.3.
So mathematically hotter than Denton's 26.9.
Significantly hotter.
Yeah.
The restaurant is much fuller. But look at the actual sales volume.
Sales dropped from 57 homes last January to just 38 this January.
That is an absolute cratering in volume.
But the hotness ratio is up. How?
Because it's a total supply deadlock.
Yeah.
Flower Mound currently only has 1.9 months of inventory on the market.
Less than 2 months. That is incredibly tight.
It's suffocating. So you have a situation where people desperately want to live there, which keeps the hotness ratio high, but there's absolutely nothing to buy. And what is there is incredibly expensive.
What's the median in Flower Mound right now?
For January 2026, the median is $615,000.
So if you are a buyer in Flower Mound, you are basically fighting over scraps.
You are fighting over very, very expensive scraps. And that dynamic leads to this weird paralysis we are seeing. High demand, but a super low transaction count.
Why aren't people listing their homes there to meet the demand?
Because the people who already live in Flower Mound don't want to leave. They love the schools, they love the area, and more importantly, they can't afford to buy anywhere else with these current interest rates if they give up their current mortgage.
Right.
It's what economists call a gilded cage scenario.
A gilded cage. I really like that visual. You have a beautiful appreciating asset of a house, but you're fundamentally trapped inside it.
Exactly.
So let's contrast that gilded cage with Louisville.
Louisville is fascinating right now. It is acting as the primary affordability release valve for this whole region.
The hotness ratio there is 30.8.
So very solid demand. But the median price is $372,000.
So almost $250,000 cheaper than Flower Mound.
Right. And look at the sold-to-list ratio in Louisville, 95.5%.
So a much tighter negotiation window than what we saw in Denton City. Buyers aren't getting those massive 7% discounts here.
No, because the sellers in Louisville actually have a product that normal people can afford.
The demand pool is wider.
Exactly. If you list a decent house at $370K in this current high-rate environment, you have a massively bigger pool of potential buyers than if you list a house at $615K in Flower Mound.
So multiple people are looking at the $370K house, meaning the seller doesn't have to discount it as much to get it under contract.
You got it. The affordability drives the leverage back to the seller.
But then we get to the absolute outlier in this report, the one that completely jumped off the page for me when I was reviewing the notes.
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
We've been talking about the big established cities, Denton, Flower Mound, Louisville, but sitting at the very top of the hotness list for the entire county is Krugerville.
Ah, yes. The Krugerville anomaly.
The hotness ratio in Krugerville is 43.1.
That is scorching hot.
43.1. That is hotter than Denton, hotter than Plano, hotter than Frisco. What is going on there?
Well, we have to ask why. Why is a tiny town on the periphery outperforming the massive economic engines of the Metroplex?
I assume you're going to tell me it's not because of the bustling Krugerville nightlife.
No, definitely not, unless you count listening to the crickets on your back porch.
So what is it?
It is purely an affordability migration. Remember the old real estate adage? Drive until you qualify.
Sure. You keep driving further out from the city center until you find a house payment you can get approved for.
Exactly. Well, this is the 2026 version of that. This is drive until you find a deal.
What is the median price out there in Krugerville?
$303,525.
And there it is. The puzzle is solved.
Almost $70,000 cheaper than Louisville. And over $120,000 cheaper than the county median.
That is a massive difference in a monthly payment.
It's the difference between an approval and a denial for a lot of working families. You can get a newer home, likely on a little more land, which ties right back to that Peet Realty lifestyle desire we talked about earlier, for around $300K.
So basically, the heat map of the real estate market right now is effectively an inverse of the price map.
That is a perfect way to summarize it. It is precision-guided to the bottom dollar. The cheaper the zip code, the fiercer the competition.
Because that's where the remaining buyers are pooling.
Yes. If you are listening to this deep dive right now and you are thinking about buying an investment property, you have to realize that the hot market isn't where the glossiest, fanciest brochures are.
Right.
It's strictly where the monthly payment is actually survivable for the average median income family.
Right.
Right now, Krugerville represents survival.
Which really brings us to the actual day-to-day experience of selling a house right now. We talked about volume being down, but let's look at the days on market metric, because this number honestly scared me a little bit when I read it.
It should scare you. It completely changes the entire texture of the market for everyone involved.
84 days.
Almost 3 full months.
I mean, I remember 2021. You put a sign in the yard on a Friday afternoon. You had 20 multiple offers by Sunday evening, and you were under a firm contract by Monday morning.
Oh, yeah.
The days on market back then was effectively zero.
It was almost negative. You had aggressive buyers trying to buy the house before you even officially listed it on the MLS.
Yeah. And now we are sitting at 84 days on average. What does that actually do to a seller?
It breaks them. Psychologically and financially, it is exhausting.
Give me a scenario. Walk me through it.
Okay, imagine you are moving. You buy a new house across town, and it's contingent on selling your old one. You clean everything, you stage it, you list it.
Optimistic.
Very. Month 1 goes by, you get a few showings, maybe one totally insulting lowball offer.
Ouch.
Month 2 rolls around. Now you are constantly keeping the house perfectly clean. You are leaving every time a showing happens.
Which gets really old really fast.
Extremely. Maybe you are paying bridge financing because you already closed on the new place.
So you are bleeding cash.
Bleeding. By the time you finally hit day 84, you aren't really a willing market participant anymore. You are a hostage to the process.
And 84 days is just the average, which means for every house that sells in a week, there is another house that is sitting there for 120, maybe 150 days.
Exactly. Averages always hide the extreme outliers. Some people are sitting on the market for half a year right now.
Which really ties back to the whole Peet Realty philosophy they mentioned in their brief. The idea that you desperately need a guide.
You do. In 2021, a golden retriever could sell a house in Denton County.
Just tie a flyer to its collar.
Exactly. You didn't need skill. You didn't need marketing savvy. You just needed a real estate license and a pulse.
But now,
In a market where you have to actively stage and market a home for 90 days, manage the seller's emotional expectations, navigate brutal post-inspection renegotiations, skill actually matters again.
it's not just stick a sign in the yard and wait for the stampede.
It's trench warfare. Every single deal is a battle.
Speaking of battles and niche markets that require some real skill, let's look at what is happening with condos in Section 4. Because there is a very strange blip in the data here that we definitely need to address carefully.
Ah, the condo mystery. We have to be the data police on this one.
Please be the police, because I looked at this and I honestly thought it was a typo in the report. Sales are up 100%, prices up 100%.
I know, it looks insane.
Median price jumped to $333,000.
But look at the sample size.
The sample size is 8 units.
8 total for the entire month.
Up from 4 last year.
Exactly. When you are dealing with single-digit sales numbers in an entire county, you absolutely cannot draw a statistical trend line from it.
Because one weird sale throws everything off?
Completely. One luxury penthouse loft selling in downtown Denton for $1 million skews the median completely out of reality.
So Denton condos didn't actually double in underlying value in 12 months.
Well, not even close. In fact, if you zoom out and look at the wider DFW metrics for attached housing, condo sales are actually down 10% globally, and prices are down 11%.
Why are condos getting hit harder than single-family homes?
Because condos usually suffer first in any downturn. The HOA fees completely mess up the affordability math for the buyer.
That's a really good point. If you are already highly price sensitive because of interest rates, finding out there is an extra $400 or $500 a month in non-negotiable HOA fees, that is an immediate deal breaker.
It kills the debt-to-income ratio for the loan.
Oh.
So, long story short, ignore the Denton condo boom. It's just statistical noise.
Good to know. Don't go buying a condo thinking it's the next big thing.
Right. It likely just means one specific new boutique development opened up and closed a few pre-sales in January. Nothing more.
Okay, what about land? We talked earlier about the cattle and the horses and the desire for space. Is the actual dirt holding its value?
Interestingly, yes. Land remains a very premium asset in Denton County. Look at the city of Denton land sales.
Median price hit $279,000.
For January, yes.
And that is just for the lot, no structures.
Just the raw dirt.
Wow.
And if you look at the sold-to-list ratio across the entire region for raw land, it's holding remarkably steady near 90%.
But land is notoriously illiquid, isn't it?
Incredibly illiquid.
Yeah.
It took an average of 122 days to sell that dirt.
That's a full 4 months on the market.
Yes, but the underlying value is holding strong.
Why do you think that is? When houses are dropping 5%, why is the dirt holding?
Because of scarcity. They quite literally aren't making any more of it. And that massive demographic trend we discussed, that deep psychological desire to spread out, is acting as a very strong floor supporting the price.
So people are buying it now for later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you want to build that custom dream ranch in 5 or 10 years, you have to secure the dirt today before it's gone or subdivided. And unlike a house, dirt doesn't need a new roof. The AC doesn't break.
It just sits there.
It just sits there and waits for you.
Okay, so summarizing everything so far. We have a market where buying is incredibly expensive and hard, selling takes 84 days and is emotionally painful, and prices are correcting, but they are still historically high.
That is the reality.
So what happens to the people who just opt out? The buyers who look at the math, look at the interest rates, and just say, you know what, I'm not playing this game right now.
They become renters.
Which brings us to Section 5.
And honestly, this might be the most important part of our entire deep dive today because it signals a massive structural shift in how people are choosing to live in North Texas.
We are seeing a huge surge in leasing activity, aren't we?
Massive. If you look at the residential lease data for single-family homes across the wider DFW area, leases are up 7%.
That was nearly 3,000 leases signed in January 2026 alone.
Right. Now think about who those people are. That is roughly 3,000 households that, in a normal interest rate environment like 2019, likely would have been first-time home buyers.
But now they are tenants.
Now they are tenants.
But here's the part that confused me when I was prepping for this. Usually in Economics 101, when demand goes up 7%, prices naturally spike.
Right. High demand equals high prices.
But the median lease price actually went down 2%. It's sitting at $2,245.
I know. It completely breaks the standard rule.
How is demand surging, but rental prices are actually softening?
Because of the supply side.
Yeah.
Remember those sellers we talked about? The ones sitting on the market as hostages for 84 days.
The ones paying 2 mortgages.
Yes. Eventually, a lot of those sellers just throw their hands up and give up.
They pull the listing.
They pull it. They say, I can't sell it for what I need to break even, or I can't stomach the $30,000 discount the buyer is demanding, so I'll just rent it out to cover my mortgage. We are seeing an absolute wave of what the industry calls accidental landlords.
Accidental landlords. People who never intended to be real estate investors.
Exactly. And all of these accidental landlords are suddenly flooding the rental market with fresh inventory.
Which keeps the rental prices suppressed, even though there's a flood of new tenants looking for places.
Exactly. The landlords are forced to compete with each other for those tenants.
That is a truly fascinating dynamic. So the failure of the sales market is actively subsidizing the rental market.
In a very real way, yes.
Yeah.
And it changes the whole buy versus rent mathematical equation dramatically for the consumer.
Let's run those numbers. Let's look at Flower Mound again.
Okay, let's do the math. Median home price in Flower Mound is $615,000.
And the median rent for a house in Flower Mound?
It's $2,700 a month.
Okay, let's just do some quick napkin math for the listener. You buy that $615,000 house. Let's assume you somehow saved up the perfect 20% down payment.
Which is $123,000 in cash. Not easy.
Not easy at all. So you finance the rest. What is your monthly mortgage payment going to be?
With current interest rates, plus the hefty Texas property taxes, plus insurance, you are easily looking at $4,500 to $5,000 a month. Minimum.
Versus just $2,700 to rent the exact same house down the street.
Exactly.
That is a massive gap.
It's an unbridgeable gap for a lot of budgets. If you choose to rent, you are saving roughly $2,000 a month in cash flow. And you get to keep your $123,000 down payment sitting in a high-yield savings account earning 4 or 5% interest.
So from a purely financial standpoint.
Financially speaking, buying a house in Flower Mound right now is, well, let's call it a lifestyle luxury.
A luxury.
Yes, it is not a pure optimal investment play right now. The math heavily favors renting.
That is a really stark way to put it. I mean, culturally, we are always taught to think of renting as just throwing money away.
And usually, that's true. But in this specific, highly unusual market window we are in, buying might actually be throwing money away.
How so?
Because if you buy with a 7% mortgage, in the first 5 years, you are paying almost entirely interest to the bank. You aren't building real equity.
Right.
If you rent, yes, you are paying a landlord, but you are paying a heavily suppressed market rate because of all the excess supply, and you are keeping your powder dry in the bank.
What about the math in Denton City? Does it hold up there too?
It's a bit closer, but the principle holds. Denton rental median is $2,088.
Basically flat to slightly down from last year.
Right. And buying the median home there is $378,000.
So the gap is much smaller than in Flower Mound.
It is tighter.
Right.
But $2,088 in rent is still likely much cheaper than the total monthly PITI, payment principal, interest, taxes, insurance on a $378K purchase right now.
So this perfectly explains why the sales volume is down 16% countywide.
Exactly. The buyers aren't stupid. They can do the math just like we just did.
Right.
They look at the rental payment on one side of the paper, they look at the mortgage payment on the other side, and they rationally choose to sign a lease.
What about Little Elm, another big suburb?
Median rent in Little Elm is $2,150, very similar to Denton. The rental market across the whole northern corridor is tight, it's consistent, and it is offering a crucial affordability release valve for people who just cannot or simply will not buy right now.
So we have established that the American dream is currently significantly cheaper to lease than it is to buy.
For the moment, yes.
Let's zoom out to the broader regional context for Section 6. The Battle of the Counties, as you called it.
Right, because Denton doesn't exist in a vacuum.
We touched on Dallas and Collin earlier, but I really want to dive into the inventory levels because from what I understand, inventory is basically the crystal ball for future pricing, right?
It is the absolute best leading indicator we have.
Okay, so in Denton County, the overall inventory is sitting at 3.5 months, which is up 6.1% from last year.
Correct. Now, for the listener, the golden rule of thumb in real estate economics is that 6 months of supply is considered a perfectly balanced market.
Meaning neither the buyer nor the seller has a distinct upper hand.
Right. Prices generally stay flat, negotiations are fair.
So if we are at 3.5 months of supply, we are technically still in a seller's market, right?
Technically speaking, by the textbook, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Anything under 6 months mathematically favors the seller.
But,
and this is a huge but, we have to remember where we just came from. We were sitting at less than 1 month of supply just a couple of years ago.
right.
So while 3.5 months is technically a seller's market, it feels like an absolute ocean of inventory compared to the frenzy of 2021.
It's all relative to recent trauma.
Exactly. To a seller who vividly remembers their neighbor getting 30 offers in one weekend in 2021, sitting on the market with 3.5 months of competition feels agonizingly slow and painful.
But to a buyer,
To a buyer, it finally feels like they can breathe. They finally feel like they have a choice.
they can actually sleep on it.
Exactly. A buyer can look at a house on Saturday and say, you know what, I don't have to put in an offer right this second. Let's see what else comes on the market next week.
And that psychological shift is huge.
It changes everything. Moving from a mindset of utter scarcity to a mindset of option completely strips the urgency out of the market, which is why prices are softening.
How does that 3.5 months compare to the neighboring counties?
Dallas County is tracking very similarly, sitting right around 3.6 months of supply. So the core of the Metroplex is moving together toward balance.
Okay.
But let's look at a totally different outlier that was mentioned in the report data. Eastland County.
Eastland. Now that is way out west, past Weatherford.
Very rural, deep country.
What are the numbers doing out there?
Sales volume's down 18%,
Okay, similar to Denton.
but the median prices out there are down 28%.
Whoa, a 28% drop in home values.
Yes.
That is a crash.
That is exactly what happens in low-volume, highly rural markets when the broader economy tightens up. They are incredibly volatile.
Because there's a smaller buyer pool to begin with.
Right. When interest rates shoot up and the economy feels shaky, the secondary homes, the hunting cabins, or those way-out ranch properties are the very first things people stop buying.
The luxury of distance becomes a liability.
Exactly. It's a really stark reminder that while Denton County is correcting at -5%, which hurts,
Yeah.
it's absolutely not crashing like some of the more remote rural areas are right now.
That is a really important perspective. The established suburbs are bending under the weight of the rates, but the rural outliers might actually be breaking a little bit.
The liquidity just dries up so much faster the further out you drive.
Right.
You can almost always find someone to buy a house in Dallas or Denton eventually, even in a bad market. But finding a buyer for a remote ranch in Eastland when the market turns sour, that can take years.
Yeah.
Literally years.
So, bringing this all back home as we look to wrap up. We are standing here in late February 2026. The spring market is knocking on the door, for better or worse. What is the grand synthesis here for our listeners?
The synthesis is that Denton County is fundamentally a market in a painful transition. The frantic, easy money pace is gone. We all have to accept that reality.
Volume is down 16%.
Yes. But importantly, prices are only down 5%.
So it's a sticky correction.
Very sticky. Sellers are incredibly stubborn. They do not want to let go of their perceived peak equity.
And buyers are totally stretched to their financial limits by the mortgage rates.
Right. So we end up with fewer deals crossing the finish line. It's a Mexican standoff.
But, as we noted, If you look in the right pockets, places like Krugerville or even the affordable segments of Louisville, the heat is definitely still there.
The heat is always there for affordability. And tying it back to the beginning, the heat is still there for true lifestyle properties.
Which brings us full circle back to the Peet Realty snippet. Their tagline was, "Real estate made real easy."
You know, reading their excerpt again, it really strikes me.
What's that?
They talk about the real estate transaction being, and I quote, a very important part of your life and livelihood. In a market exactly like this one, where homes sit stagnant for 84 days, where nitpicky inspection reports actually kill deals, where buyer financing is incredibly tricky to secure, you really truly do need a professional guide.
You can't just stick a sign in the yard and wait for the stampede of millennials to show up with cash anymore.
You really can't. You need someone who deeply understands the localized data, someone who knows the stark economic difference between trying to sell a condo in downtown Denton versus a 10-acre ranch in Aubrey.
Because as we've seen, those are two completely different economic animals right now. One is basically statistical noise, and the other is a prime lifestyle asset.
Exactly. And honestly, you need someone who knows how to handle British white cattle if they happen to come with the property.
Always a helpful skill to have on your resume.
Absolutely. If you buy the ranch, you might inherit the cows. You need to know who to call.
So as we close out this deep dive, here is my final, slightly provocative thought for you, the listener. Something to really chew on this week.
Let's hear it.
We see residential leases surging up. We see actual home sales plummeting down. We see the market hotness physically moving to the extreme outer rims of the county, like Krugerville.
Yes, all true.
Are we witnessing a permanent structural shift in the American dream here in North Texas?
That is the million-dollar question.
For decades, the unquestioned dream was buy a house in the suburbs, have the yard, build the equity.
Right.
But if the underlying math currently favors renting so heavily, saving $2,000 a month in some cases, and if the only places a normal family can actually afford to buy are an hour drive from the city, are we seeing the dawn of a generation that just decides to lease the lifestyle instead of trying to own it?
It is entirely possible. Are we moving toward a more European model where long-term renting is just the accepted, financially prudent strategy? Or is this whole thing just a temporary, localized pause, just a frustrating waiting room moment while everyone holds their breath to the Federal Reserve to slash interest rates?
Time will tell. But before we go, I have one more puzzle piece. If the hotness ratio is so high in certain spots, meaning lots of homes are going under pending contract, but the actual closed sales volume is down 16% across the board.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Does that mean deals are falling through at record rates?
That is the truly scary thought I will leave you with. A high pending ratio, but a low close ratio, mathematically suggests the chain is breaking somewhere in the middle of the escrow process.
Financing falling through at the last minute.
Financing dying in underwriting. Appraisals coming in horribly low. Or inspections revealing expensive issues that stubborn sellers flat out refuse to fix.
Or just buyers getting cold feet and walking away from their earnest money.
All of the above. The transaction pipeline is incredibly fragile right now.
Definitely something to ponder as you drive around Denton County this spring and look at all those for sale signs. They might be sitting in the grass a little longer than you think.
They absolutely will be.
And if you are out there actively trying to buy, please make sure your financing is absolutely bulletproof before you step into the ring.
Indeed. Buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy spring.
Thanks for diving deep into the data with us today. We'll see you on the next one.